Jasper and the Ring of Gyges. I never used to talk much, but when you're chained to a wall in a dungeon, there's not a whole lot else to do. My friend's name was Jasper. He was an older man, but told interesting stories about life before the dungeon cell. He was also a thief, like me. At least, that's why he was in prison. He didn't talk much about anything he stole, but that was about to change. For you see, I was set to be released the following day, and old Jasper had one last story to tell. "Over this last year you have truly impressed me, my son," said Jasper. "I will be sad to lose your company for a time." "For a time? Jasper, I'm sorry, but I have no plans on coming back to this place." "Of course not, no. But perhaps you can use your skills to do an old man a favor?" I wondered at what sort of request he might make of me, and although I was reluctant, I had grown to love this man like the father I never had. After a short consideration, I nodded my head. "That's a good boy. If you do this, you will be able to prove my innocence." I was shocked. It never occurred to me, and Jasper never indicated that he was innocent. "You mean you'll die in here for a crime you never committed?" "I am no longer afraid of death. It is my family I am most anxious for. My crime was one of treason, you see, and my family was hunted into exile on my account, and remains so even to this day." "What was stolen that was so important that it was a crime against the king?" I asked. "There was many years ago a secret expedition ordered by the king. Very few knew about it. I led a company of 4 men into an ancient cavern. We knew on good authority that something great was hidden there, but we soon realized that we were not scouring a cave filled with treasure long forgotten by looters, but rather were in a tomb. As we searched further, we encountered the tomb of a man whose name we thought was a myth. It was the tomb of Gyges of Lydia. Against my counsel, the men opened the sarcophagus. I reminded the men we were not here to despoil the remains of the dead, and I took my leave. Upon returning to the king, anxious to hear what treasure we unearthed, I told him there was nothing in the cavern but the bones of the dead. He was saddened but satisfied that I was not lying. A fortnight later, the king was dead, and a new ruler took the throne. I was not summoned to see the king, but arrested at my home for the crime of treasonous theft, and locked in this dungeon without trial. It was a sad tale to be sure, and it prompted me to ask, what is it that I can do to help? The myth tells of the Ring of Gyges, which has the power to turn its wearer invisible at will. I suspect this is the treasure the king thought I had stolen. I need you to find it, and so convince the king of my innocence. Then my family will again dwell in safety." I was greatly puzzled by Jasper's story, but it was his request I could not believe. How could I possibly steal from someone I couldn't even see? Nevertheless, I swore an oath to Jasper, saying, if I didn't accomplish his request before the death of his last child, that I should be forever blind. "And of the ring," I said, "what shall I do with it when I find it?" "Return it to the finger of Gyges," he said. The following day I was brought before the king. He spoke to me of his mercy, but also of his judgment. If he saw me again, he promised, his mercy would fail, and he would see me hanged. As I kneeled before the king, I went to kiss his hand, as is custom when thanking the mercy of the king. And I couldn't help but notice a ring on his index finger. He had many beautiful rings on his fingers, of course. Some gold, some jeweled, but all beautiful. Except the one on his index finger. It was a very simple and humble ring, perhaps made of iron. This was a poor man's ring, not that of royalty. I kissed his hand and left the presence of the king. Knowing that the owner of the Ring of Gyges was the king solved one problem, but it opened up a problem of greater size. How can I steal from the most protected man in the kingdom? As time passed, other matters became important in my life. I had no place to live, nor had I food to eat. With no family to rely on at all, I didn't even have a memory of my father. And as the ancient saying goes, a father who doesn't teach his son a skill teaches him to be a thief. So it was with me. Orphaned and alone, all I could do was steal and run. Things changed very little after I met Jasper. I still had to steal to survive, But at least now I had a purpose. One night it happened that I came to hear a strange tale from a woman named Anne. Her husband owned a large farm from which I stole many apples. I overheard her frantically describing a chilling encounter to her husband. She was convinced that the farmhouse was haunted by an evil spirit. At midnight, about 3 times a week, she said the ghost whispered softly in her ear, telling her to murder her husband and retreat to the king for safety. I knew at once this must be the king abusing Gyges' ring. Secretly, I watched the farmhouse for 2 weeks. I saw a window open from the outside by what looked like nothing at all. I tracked the sounds of his movements, his timing, his hesitations, until at last the time came to attack. I'm sure it would have been quite a spectacle when from the shadows I leapt and grasped the invisible king. With a stone I cracked his head. He fell to the ground unconscious, and to my surprise, I could now see his body. I took the ring from his index finger and carried him back to the castle gate. I left him there to be taken by his guards, who I followed with the help of Gyges' ring, now placed snugly around my own finger. The following day, while the king was judging cases before him, a voice from nowhere, my voice, bellowed in the room, "Release the prisoner named Jasper, for the treasure he supposedly stole is here." The king was confused and panicked. He looked at his index finger, then around the room, his eyes darting about with alarm. "Who are you, and how do you know the name of Jasper?" the king asked. "I shared the same dungeon prison as the man. He is innocent, and the king knows it to be true," I said. The king motioned for his high guard, of whom he asked, "Who was the last prisoner in the tower dungeon?" "Since Jasper, there was only one, a poor common thief who was placed there for stealing from a nobleman." The king's face drained of color, and he stammered, I told you you would be hanged if I saw you again, but you hide like a coward." "You are the coward," I said. "You have put an innocent man to prison, and even encouraged a young woman to murder her husband, and come to you for help. No doubt you desired to marry her yourself. You have done all this and no doubt more, without punishment because of Gyges' ring, which I stole from you last night. I am he who dragged you back to the castle. I spared your life, and now I asked you to admit your crimes." As I said this, I made myself visible to the king and to his council. When the high guard heard the accusations and saw the remarkable power of the ring, he remembered how the noble previous king died under unimaginable circumstances. He now understood how it was possible for the present king, a man he never trusted, could come into such great power. He ordered the king be put into the dungeon tower until the matter could be settled. The king objected, but his pleas went unheard. As the guards escorted the king to the tower, I also went with them, eager to see Jasper's face again. When he opened the door, however, confusion fell upon me. The prison was empty. "Where is Jasper?" I asked frantically. "Have you hanged him, like you threatened to do to me?" The high guard, seeing the sincerity and fear in my voice, spoke to me quietly, saying, "Jasper was killed 5 years ago." "That is impossible," I said. "I spoke with him in this room, not even a month ago." "That also is impossible," he said to me, "for this tower is a place of isolation. We only allow one prisoner in the tower dungeon at a time." At this news, I left the tower bewildered and frightened. Nevertheless, I completed Jasper's mission and returned the ring to the grave of Gyges. Coming back to the kingdom, there were great crowds and loud cheers. Returning to the castle, I saw the high guard wearing the robes of royalty. He was the new king. To my surprise, his first order of business was to raise me up as his replacement as high guard. He explained that of all men I alone have shown extraordinary courage in uncovering the crimes of the king, and that with my skills as a thief, he knew I would be able to keep safe all important possessions of the kingdom. The name of Jasper was also cleared of all treason. His reputation became that of a hero in all the land. His children were again able to return to their homeland, and all lived happily ever after.